Novinha, fica tranquila.
Hello and welcome, folks, to another edition of RSF Radio. I am your host, Joe Monday, and today we're going to talk about what we usually talk about, is stuff that goes on the front page of our Street Fighter. That's right, folks. This is the podcast where we talk about the news of the week, and also kind of just, I think we're going to branch out a little bit. I got some advice from you guys, the listeners, and I think that it will not only just extend to the subreddit. It's going to mostly be from the subreddit, so there's going to be, like always, the links below in the comments. But there's going to be stuff outside. And we'll see how that goes, at least in this episode, see how that goes. We're not going to go too crazy and talk about things that are well outside the realm of the FGC. Like, we're not going to talk about the God of War, Dad of War, so don't worry, no spoilers. Maybe we will talk about the God of War just for like a second. Bear with me, and I'll wrap it around because it's, a lot of people in the FGC have been playing the God of War. You see it pop up on FGC Twitter all the time now. But what I find specifically funny about that situation is that anytime I see on any gaming podcast or anytime someone has to talk in front of a microphone about the game and the developers, they talk about Cory Barlog, and all of them mispronounce his name, and they say Cory Balrog, and it makes me think of an alternate universe where Balrog develops the God of War, and it's funny how he's like Ed's dad figure, and that's funny. It's very strange how that works out. So that's the only spoiler cast of Balrog of War, is that people in gaming journalism say Cory Balrog instead of Cory Barlog. Like, I don't know. I've just heard so many times recently. It's like, you could just get the name right. I get it. Like, you want to see the Gandalf fight the Balrog on the bridge to somewhere, or you want to throw a turn punch here and there and kill Akuma with 2 hits. I get it. Like, that's okay. Balrog's pretty dope. It's pretty rad. But come on, guys. Just read with your eyes. Like, the art, I can do it. And I'm not game journalism. I don't write about games at all. Who would write about games? Writing about games is dumb. Who would do such a thing in perpetuity? In the length of a book, perhaps. That would be weird if someone did that. That'd be dumb. Anyway, this is a podcast where we talk about what's been going on the front page of our Street Fighter, and so we're going to do that. And the first topic is something that popped up, and I'm super happy with, because she was just on the show. But Combo Queens got a big interview series on SRK. Is interview series the right term for that? I don't know. It's just a big interview with everybody, like a group interview, basically. Going through asking a broad swath of questions to a number of owners and members of Combo Queens, and in general, a pretty good read. And if there was any question in your mind of what Combo Queens was or is, you can find that information here. There's a whole lot going on. I recommend reading through it. Especially for the lady listeners out there, because that's something you might want to take advantage of in the future. But also, just maybe if you're a dude, you want to read it, because there's a lot of moves happening in the scene. So it's good to at least see their process and as they talk about it, and how things came to be. So if you want to start your own thing, maybe it doesn't have to be just gender related. Maybe you just want to do something for yourself in your own local communities. Well, guess what? These girls know what the fuck they're doing, so check it out. Okay. Next bit of information. I always hate having... Here's my aside, just for podcast inside baseball. I know most of the people who listen to the podcast only listen to the show through the audio. I get that. But there's also the video portion. And in the video portion, like up and to the left of me is where I have the thing displayed of, here's the thing I'm talking about. It's right there. You can just like, here's the website and it's open. SRK, for whatever reason, it shits the bed. Just that website in its entirety. If I have it open for like longer than the time that it would take for me to like read one of their articles, it's just like, hey, I'm gonna need to break. It's gonna happen, and it's really unfortunate, and I don't like it. It's just a bad website to have open in a browser. I don't know exactly what's wrong with it, but sorry, SRK, I'm putting you on notice, putting you on watch, on browser watch. Clear your history. But anyway, next topic. Chris T and Mana RD from this past weekend. This was the finish to this past weekend's big tournament, which, man, I'm like blanking on it. I'm gonna have to go back in and re-edit this. The last round of, it was in, what was it called? It was in the what was it called? Oh man, I'm gonna hate myself for doing this. Anyway, regardless, grand finals of that tournament ended pretty raggo, as I saw some people say on Twitter, and that was pretty exciting. Oh man, I'm gonna fucking kill myself for not thinking about that, not remembering, not having it like written down. That sucks. Have things. Hey, other podcast note for you guys out there who are listening: have notes. Speaking of taking notes, something that Chris T does in this interview that he had with Daigo, which is our next topic. Taking notes the whole time and knowing what the fuck you're talking about. This is a incredible interview, I think, because it's a very highly skilled player talking to one of the most skilled players, and they're having a very in detail conversation about some very specific topics. And the things that the thing about me, and you might have known from if you are a listener, but I don't typically like to ride Daigo. I typically go against the grain on that a lot of times. He's proven me wrong time and time again, and I think that's great. It's great to see him continue to be a very strong competitor and a driving force within the community. Daigo Beast TV is doing a whole lot of really great production stuff, and I think this is probably part of it. I think someone from Beast TV edited this. I can't be sure because this is also like a very well edited interview. Chris asks his questions in English, and it just immediately cuts to Daigo's response and has subtitles. It's very good. And he asks some pointed questions here of, not really pointed, but like very high skill level questions, specifically mostly around reversals and how to read your opponents. And there's something about it that just some of the things that Daigo says it's made me think a little bit, made me reconsider, like maybe because I like to think about Street Fighter V specifically of, you kind of just have to play it really safe because there's so few options, right, that it kind of doesn't make sense not to place the safest bet. But some of the things he says here is just like, no, just go ahead and do the risky thing, just because you might be playing against this game allows you to much better read your opponent in terms of what, or at least how they are or perceive themselves as a player, what speed they're playing. And from there, you can make your decision on whether to reversal or not. Or maybe take like that big risk of, if you can't whiff punish with a normal, whiff punish with a Shoryuken or a flash kick. Why not? Because, you obviously are looking to have that read. Why not go the crazy direction? Isn't that much more of a statement? And that's a very brief synopsis of just like one of the many topics he talks about. Very interesting stuff. He gets into how do you play with anxiety? With Daigo, obviously, he doesn't really get nervous at all, but Chris explains, well, this is something that I get nervous about. like being on the main stage, questioning all of my decisions. How do you deal with that? Because Daigo's cool as a cucumber. He's cool as they come. You like to think about Sleepy Daigo. He's like in the highest pressure situations of the most high stakes tournaments, and just dead ass face, just next game, play the set. It's because he's so focused, and he's so centered on the one goal of, I just have to play my game. I'm focused on my game, and his answers are really good, and probably work for a specific type of player. His advice doesn't actually apply to. Here's like the trick about this whole interview, is that his advice does not necessarily apply to new players or players learning the game, or players who don't know all the options, players who haven't done their homework and don't have like the full breadth of a game plan. Like if you know, for example, if you don't know like how to whiff punish, for example, or like what to look for when whiff punishing, or like knowing what buttons like can be whiff punished by your character, or like what buttons give your character problems. Like if you don't have those things in mind already, you don't have that like base level game plan, like how are you supposed to be able to read your opponent's game plan and then make these like next level decisions, which he's talking about? And that's where like Daigo gets his focus from. Is really, as he explains in this interview, is more so just like he's been in these situations tons of times. All he has to think about is the game, focus on the game, play your game, focus on what your opponent is doing, focus on what your opponent is telling you, and respond from that. Otherwise, then you just forget about like the core concepts of what your game plan was, and you can lead astray from that. Other people deal with anxiety differently because they might not be on the level of Daigo. They might not play the game as much as Daigo plays the game. They might not have a game plan as tried and true as what Daigo has, or what any other number of top level players. But highly recommend watching this entire interview. It's 22.5 minutes long. It's all in subtitles, and like 100% worth the read, worth the listen, worth the watch. Please check this out. It definitely has given me a lot of food for thought on many topics that I thought were pretty like case closed, and kind of looking at things with more of an open mind now. So anyway, moving on to the next topic, something for everybody. That's like some very high level play stuff. Now this is something just for everybody that we can all enjoy. Up on Capcom Unity, they posted the latest stuff about costumes. This one is for Bison, and it is Bison in the Asterath crossover from the... This is... Oh man, Ghouls and Ghosts? Yeah. That game is very difficult. It's extremely difficult, very hard. Regardless, this post basically only explains... Oh, I'm sorry, just Ghosts and Goblins, not Ghouls and Ghosts. What the fuck is Ghouls and Ghosts? Is that even a game that exists? I'll have to Google that. Man, alright folks, let me reel it back, because this is like the third time I've been like way off base. And I just have to point it out because, that's just the state of things right now. It's currently about 10 p.m. where I am. And working the 12-hour long shifts that I have been, and then doing anything additionally to that has just taken a massive toll on like my brain space and turns it mostly into goo. So I've only covered like 4 topics and I've strayed on like all 3 of them. Fuck. Like I've already struck out on 4 pitches. Man. That's not a good at bat, folks. That's not a good at bat. But regardless, Ghosts and Goblins is where this is from. The costume is kind of a more realization of it because it's an old NES game, and it's very silly to me. The belly is a big mouth that has an empty cavity in it, and it bothers me to look at a little bit. So maybe if you play against me and you main Bison, maybe this is the costume that you choose because there's something that gets a guttural reaction from me. So anyway, This lays out the challenges that you have to beat and the dates that you have to play them through, and this starts on the 10th, and then basically goes until the 7th of next month. And so that's all like cut up in terms of getting the parts like you do in order to get the entirety of the costume. It also lays out the other Shadowloo soldiers that will be available to fight. So get out your Rashidos and your hard kick eagle spikes, because that's how you beat the soldiers. You just do that over and over again and you win. Shh, don't tell Capcom. Usually in these posts, or at least sometimes in these posts, they'll say something like, here's like an update coming, or they sneak some news in, some secret news. Not the case in this one. At the very end, I actually find it, and I can't remember, here's the thing, I can't remember if they've done this before, but they specifically list out all of the previous crossover costumes, some of which not available anymore, like at all. So it's like, or most of which are not available anymore, all of which actually. Fuck. Kind of is like a tease of, here's all the stuff you can't get anymore, sorry. Which somewhat leads me to believe that this was included in the end, like maybe just to show, hey, look at all these crossovers, or maybe it's just like, hey, like maybe do all this stuff. You want to get your costumes now, spend your fight money this way. Or maybe it's just thought of, we're going to bring this stuff back, so maybe look forward to this. I don't know yet. I don't know what their plans are. To me, I think it would be crazy if they don't bring some of this stuff back, just as an opportunity cost for like the work put into making the costumes versus like the actual effectiveness of people trying to get them over a very short amount of time, like in some cases not even an entirety of a month. But I don't know, who knows, maybe like at the end of the season, here's my guess, here's my gut check, is that at the end of the season, within a year, all of those costumes will become available for purchase with real world dollars, and then they'll do a whole new series of costumes to do the whole monthly thing. That's like, I don't know that for a fact, but if I were to guess, that'd be my guess. Speaking of things that I had guessed, here is the Falk 100% kill combo with full resources in one reset. Here it is with Falk. We're at that level of Falk on the tier list. Next up is Falk is middling to somewhat bad. Don't you forget it. That's just how things work in the hierarchy of timing out your tier lists and deciding where a character falls on it within the first month of them being available. We're at this part, and I mean it's kind of just like the obvious thing. Like, you see this with every character, or basically every character when they come out, is a couple days after release, someone posts a quick clip video of something starting with a jump-in combo. The combo might be counter hit, or the jump-in might be counter hit, and then somewhere in there, there's a reset that, like, they have to reversal or something, or like it causes a stun, and then they spend all of their bar on V-trigger and the full critical art, and then the character's dead. It's most often Cammy because she has the lowest health and stun. I get it. It just happens with every character, and this is the one with Falk. It uses V-trigger too, which I didn't consider the damage possibilities of V-trigger 2 until I saw this video, so there's like that. But at the same time, I still think V-trigger 2 is pretty garbage. I don't think it's very good for a number of reasons, but specifically because V-trigger 1 seems so powerful, at least to me currently. But still not yet to be determined, because it's, what, not even been a month since she's come out. But we got some more tech for you. Some Falk tech. I mean, you could still check out the Mega Thread that people are still adding to it. I believe it's still stickied. But this particular mix-up I thought was cool, because it's a spacing-related safe jump, which I think those are fun. And it also shows usage of the down forward hard kick, which can OTG, if you didn't know, can hit a grounded opponent if they decide not to quick rise, and it like shows you where to lead with that, all using V-trigger 1, which again I think is the proper V-trigger. And I guess I have more of an opinion on Falk now. It's been a little bit more time since her release, and I feel like she's kind of risen in the ranks for me. There are things about her that I don't like. I don't like the cancel windows on her standing medium kick. That, to me, just doesn't feel good. Doesn't have a good feel to it. The combo feel doesn't feel quite right to me. I think it's mostly because the cancel window is like exceptionally long, but also if you cancel late in those frames, then like it will combos will drop. It just happens to be a thing that, you know, the type of input character that she is, like, same thing with Ed. Like, she's a little too far away, it will drop. If you like do that late cancel and it pushes them a little bit too far away, and the follow up will drop. Doesn't feel good. It's like the equivalent of, you ever got on a bike and when you sit down on the seat, like the nut or something that controls like the pitch of the seat wasn't fully tightened, so you sit down like on the front, it kind of bends forward a little bit. You you just started going down a hill, and you put a little bit of weight on the front end of the seat, and it just bends forward a little bit. It's like, ooh, okay, this is still a bike and it still functions, and I'm not gonna fall off, but like, ooh, this doesn't feel great. Doesn't feel great. And I'm going to try to put the brakes on because I don't like this situation because the seat's tilting in a weird way and I don't like it. That's kind of how the combo feels. So that's just a personal preference for me. This might not be the same way for you guys, and that's fine. If her particular brand of input is something that you can get down with, then more power to you. But it's just not my cup of tea. Things that I think are cool about her. I actually don't... Here's another thing. Another aside about Falk, not something that is brought up within the topics of this week. At least I don't think so. This has been brought up on the sub, but there's just been a ton of bullshit on Twitter concerning her normals, specifically her extended pokes with the stick having hurt boxes for whatever reason. I know what the reason. Here's the real thing. I know what the reason is, and it's that alarmist bullshit like that gets the most interaction from your biggest like name accounts. So the most like top players who have like a lot of followers, they pick her up for like a couple seconds and they see, aha, I can like look at me like whiff punish her forward hard punch. Her hurt box is way fucking out there. How crazy is this? Am I right, Twitter? And then you just say like it's the equivalent of just saying like, well, Capcom. Which gets, like, the interaction level on that as a viewer, especially if you aren't, like, well-versed in the game and, like, don't really know how, you know, if you don't have a good sense of, like, how fighting games are balanced or how, like, hurt boxes are balanced, even if the thing that they're sharing ends up being actually egregious, which happens sometimes, but most of the time it's just some alarmist bullshit. To many players who don't have a very good idea of like just general fighting game balance or how things are balanced or what can make things balanced, it gets a huge reaction from those players and just from those fans. And a lot of people aren't players, so it's like, okay, it's like the lie makes its way halfway around the world before the truth has time to get its pants on, to quote some... Oh my gosh, I'm failing again. I'm striking out again. That's a fucking prime minister during World War II. Why am I losing this? Regardless, folks, I think that it's fine. I don't think that her normals are supposed to be used as like I don't think she's a keep away character, even though she has the projectile like she has. Even though she has the long-range pokes like she has, I feel like the way that her pressure is turning out to look like, in my opinion, it's the way that like her pressure buttons, like her stand medium punch, the way that it works, that just like quick, very short-range gut punch. I tend to not think that she's like a keep away zoning character, so I don't like when people compare her to Manat. It's like, okay, Manat is like extremely limited in terms of like like neutral option, like combo options, specifically when she like doesn't have V trigger 2 like at all. Like she's extremely limited in terms of pressure. She mostly goes to keep away. I get that. So her normals effectively act the same way. Dhalsim kind of in a different way, not so much as funky as Falk, but is what it is. Falk, I think, has better pressure. I was about to say Falk has better pressure than Dhalsim, but I actually don't know if I'm willing to say that yet, considering Dhalsim's V trigger 2 now. I really like his V trigger 2, but at the same time, Falk has very similar things with her V trigger 1. So that might not be too crazy to say. Regardless, that's kind of my gut feeling on Falk, and I kind of have to give like a gut check on like everybody out there of, if you see some alarms bullshit, just like speak some truth to it, like, because it's so easy to just have those things retweeted and have like a quick laugh. But like, I don't know, just like drop some words in there and just say like, hey everybody, just want you guys know, like, there's a lot of norms out there who do have hurt boxes attached to them, but also maybe might want to take that into consideration when looking at the whole like balance of Falk and how she works as a character. Maybe think about that stuff for a little bit for more than 2 seconds. Just my opinion. Winston Churchill, by the way. Fuck. Man, how did I not get that one? Fuck me. Damn it. Anyway, moving on to the next topic. I gotta stop striking out. Okay, so here's a fun little glitch. And by fun little glitch, I mean like not very good glitch to come out in the latest patch of Arcade Edition. Something that I thought that they had fixed. Like, they had this problem before with characters like Alex. When he would do his leg grab, he would lose charge because of the way that things would work. Or no, it was okay, regardless. He would do that, he would lose his charge because he like switched sides. What this and he wouldn't be able to like pressure with his charge specials after on their wake up. Similar thing here, where Armika does her Rainbow Typhoon, and characters like Rashid does the dash forward, which is like that running dash, and then he does a jump forward. The inputs are up forward towards Armika, but instead of doing a jump forward, it's as if his inputs are backwards, and he does a jump backwards. So it becomes... it's like a weird, interesting situation where specifically certain types of dashes, so like Rashid's and Colleen's V-Trigger 2 dash, because they're weird and runny and special, because of that, it messes up the jump inputs, but not the dash inputs for a weird reason. It's so funky. It's broken in such a very special way. It warms my heart to see things as broken as this. But it's not just Armika's Rainbow Typhoon. It is also some certain throws that change position, such as Vega's command grab. That's a thing that will heal switch sides. And similar reaction changes the jump input after the dash. It's a very strange thing. I couldn't tell you how that was coded to make that work. But regardless, folks, hopefully this gets fixed, along with pad players being able to block low, which has still not been addressed by the community or by Capcom at all, even though I think that's a huge fucking problem. Okay, here's another question from people on our Street Fighter. This was posted by Feduio says, exactly. What's your preferred method to one-hit confirm? Do you look at the health bar, meter bar, hit block spark? Do you use the sound? Good question. And I think that this is kind of an open-ended question, and I think that other players will have different answers. One that I like to do, preferably, is look at the stun bar. It only changes whenever you get the hit. So if you look at your opponent's stun bar, and you're trying to do a hit confirm, and actually someone else asked me this question earlier, not specifically on one hit confirms. I should probably forward this to her just to just for reference of like maybe in addition to the other advice, because she was more so looking for counter hit confirms. But regardless, because I was like, you can just, I mean, you can also look at like the little counter hit that pops. It's a very, very little tricky thing there. But with this specifically, if you're just trying to get that one hit, it was actually interesting to me to see a lot of players in this thread say having that anticipation of there's only really going to be certain instances where you're going to have to use a one hit confirm. Many of them, like there's some pretty easy ones. I've listed a lot of the easy ones in like the character supplements for Geef's Gym, which I gotta go back and fix with a. I think I'm still holding off on that because in my heart of hearts I want there to be a Zangief patch, specifically just to fix Zangief, but it'll never come. I'm waiting for a patch that'll never come, and that's the real heartbreaker. However, there's a lot of like quote unquote simple one hit confirms, but there's some difficult ones out there. Like if you're trying to just cancel like a crouching medium kick into like super, for example, there's some things you gotta look for and you gotta be on point, like if you want that to work, because there's some instances where like you'll throw out your normal and like really there's only one situation where you know your opponent has to throw something into it. So like if they get hit by it, you're more than likely just to like be in tune to seeing, oh, that hit, instead of, oh, they walk forward blocked. So then you can automatically cancel. You're going to be buffering it. Regardless of the situation, you're going to be buffering that special or critical art behind it. You're going to do that, but you're just not going to pull the trigger on that last button press until you know for a fact that they've been hit. And like I said, one of my preferred methods, there's a lot of preferred methods listed here and what you can look for and like how to practice that. But one of my favorite ones is looking, at least in Street Fighter V, is looking towards the health bar. In Street Fighter 4, I would look at the meter gain, specifically on my opponent, and I'd watch that to go up. Otherwise, I don't know, it's whatever method works for you. But again, the sun bar only goes up whenever you make a positive hit on your opponent. It does not go up if they block. It doesn't move either, so it's like it is 1 or a 0 there. So that's very easy to visually see and connect. And you can always have that, unlike sound, where like in like big major tournaments you might not have access to like good headphones, or like when I say good headphones, like there might not be an audio solution for people who come to compete, like the situation was at EVO. It wasn't a very good audio situation, but you know, so maybe don't always rely on that one. That's like the one I would say maybe don't practice that one in depth. I mean, if you can always ensure that you're going to have a good audio solution, then okay. Because I know like that's how I used to. Like I am very audio in tuned. Like former musician, like currently dabbling in music. It's something that you key into. You can hear the audible difference, and when there is no audio, that could really throw you off. So I actually started playing just sans audio entirely, just not even a thing that exists when I practice. I just don't do it. Because again, not always gonna be guaranteed that there will be audio. So just something to think about, food for thought. What's next? Some good news out of Capcom. Wake Up Wednesdays is back. If you don't know what that is, it is Michael Martin, the Capcom Pro Tour manager, talking about the Capcom Pro Tour. It's back. I really liked this show when the Pro Tour was in full swing. He hasn't been doing them since the Pro Tour was kind of in an off season, and it's like just getting back into it. So it makes sense now that there are events happening that are on the Pro Tour that he would go in and do this now. So like that's rad. That's cool. Super excited about that. And I look forward to watching this every Wednesday to get updates on all the Pro Tour events that I miss because I work a lot. The one thing about this one, I will say, it actually doesn't cover much in terms of the actual games. It's, like, it doesn't actually fulfill its purpose of, you know, being the coverage of the events. This one in particular, the first one of the season, actually more so talks about why certain decisions were made in terms of the points system. A lot of people have, like, even when it came out, and our Street Fighter reacted to this, that the points distributions are not great for ranking events or for anyone who doesn't really place super high at major tournaments. Very small points are getting doled out to players who don't necessarily place very high or can't really travel to a bunch of Pro Tour events. So that's like why we decided to spin up some major sponsoring. And have I said this on this podcast? I say it so many times, but like, yep, M Lizard fully funded now, so M Lizard and Neon gonna be getting Combo Breaker. So it's gonna be great to have those players who are currently not sponsored to get out there and get more Pro Tour points, to give them an opportunity to compete on the main stage and get that big money, or potentially become sponsored players, so that they have the ability and the means to travel to more events, and so that we get to enjoy to watch them play as viewers, or you get to, because to watch them live at least. It's gonna be busy for me for a while. I'll stop that. That's a tired. I've beaten that dead horse now. Regardless, this kind of gets into why they made the changes to the points distribution, and I actually kind of agree with it. I kind of agree with the explanation. It makes sense in that basically what they expected last year was there's going to be, you know, good points distribution, but there was like an inflation, and a lot of the people in the top like 32 of last year was like very like smashed together. I think that with this new points distribution, the well-performing players are basically going to guarantee themselves a seat, because they're going to get like placed within like top 1 or 2 of first and second at more than one CPT event. Like, you're probably going to be golden. But then like it's those like 8th places and like it's time for 16th places where it's like those are where like those little points kind of end up mattering, and there's probably going to be very small points differences. Again, I think I might be on record saying this earlier when we first looked at those, but like there's going to be, you know, I'm very interested in like what number the 30 is, what number like 28 is, how many points are they going to have. I think that's going to be interesting this year, and that was their explanation, and hopefully things end up going good. Regardless, I just hope it makes people hungry to compete, and you know, forces more players to get out to more events, so that every tournament is a threat and every tournament is exciting to watch. That's always good news for the community and for the it's for the community in general. It's just good for the community, I think. But regardless, moving on to the next topic. I'm looking forward to the next Wake Up Wednesday and can't wait for updates on things that I missed throughout the week. Here is a post that came in pretty late, earlier today, in fact. So in preparation for the Street Fighter 30th anniversary collection, Street Fighter, or can I just say like Street Fighter? No, Capcom in general, but like Street Fighter's, you know, their whole marketing arm has been pretty much in full force with this, and they released this video. This was released by PlayStation. They must still be getting that PlayStation money. That's interesting. I didn't know they were still in bed together. I thought they were ex-lovers, but look, they turn around and hop back into this, calling their ex up late at night, making that hotline bling. Regardless, they put out this video. It is part 1 of a series. I would expect to lead up into the release, which is exciting. But it's really cool because instead of getting like a voiceover man, they get James Chen. And I feel like, I know this isn't what happened because he's very clearly reading from a script. He's not a voice actor. He is not well read with scripts. He's well versed in Street Fighter, which is why it's very interesting to like hear him say all these things and like his whole history with the community and the scene. Like that part I love. Like they're leaning into that part, which is like they could have gotten, PlayStation could have paid businessman, voice man to say the things about the Street Fighter games, but instead they pay James Chen. Or maybe he did this for, like, in my mind, in my heart of heart, I know this didn't happen, but in my gut, I just, like, I wish that they just put him in a sound booth and were like, hey, Street Fighter is, the 30th anniversary is coming out. How you feel about all games? Talk about Street Fighter 1. And went, oh man, Street Fighter 1, what a game. Like, what a, look at this thing. Look at all these characters that it had before. It had Gen, had Sagat, and actually set up the story for Street Fighter 2. Like, I know that didn't happen, but like, in my gut, I want that to be like, hey James, tell us about Street Fighter 2. What was Super Turbo like? Tell us about the Super Turbo. And then he just raps about it for how, like, in my mind, the recording session lasted like 3 days, like fully recorded. Like, he's just locked in a booth talking about it. By the end, saying like, I'm very hungry. But then they're like, James, talk about Third Strike. And he's like, oh fuck, Third Strike, it's real good. I want that to be the reality, although I know that it is not. But regardless, this is actually a very well, like, all things considered, very well produced video, and it's really great to hear James talk about like the very specifics of development of these games and like the release of the games, what they meant for the community, what they meant for just video games in general. Some really cool stuff, like the lore of Street Fighter. Like, when people like, people still do really care about the lore of Street Fighter. It's just something that, you know, it's probably what has most what's going for it right now. But regardless, I'm looking forward to the next one of these, and I'm very glad that they got James Chen to do it. So here's the other thing. Maybe James Chen won't be the only one to do this. Maybe they're gonna get some other people in here, like your like Ultra Davids, your Alex Valles, and maybe some other people. That would be interesting. I don't know that to be the case. My assumption is that it's just James, but we shall see. And I look forward to the next one where he talks about probably like Street Fighter Alpha Series. Probably the Alpha Series next. Third Strike, perhaps. We'll see. But well worth the watch. It's 15 minutes long and very entertaining. Okay. So I turned on the Twitter before I started this podcast. So I don't have like our Street Fighter link to this. But breaking news, everybody. Breaking news. I'm just super excited about this, but a rival, member of Super Square, just made a post on the Twitter of, I don't know what this is for, but it's just like debut of Street Fighter, the official music video for Street Fighter. And like, A, their music is dope. B, A rival's been in the community for a very long time. Just search, I wonder if you could just do a Google search for DJ iPad. Would that work? That's probably too general. DJ iPads with face. DJ iPad. Okay, no, that's, his face doesn't show. Well, DJ iPad face. No, it still doesn't come up. That sucks. I was hoping that it would. You just get DJ Khaled and then. Oh boy, yeah. Don't safe search off on that one. That's a bit grotesque. DJ iPad, a rival, member of Super Square, made an announcement that they're doing something Street Fighter related. If you don't know his music and their music, for example, I use a lot of his music during the tournaments. The Street Fighter Cross Mega Man remixes, all him, all very good stuff. Those usually get called out in the chat because they're like, oh man, this is like an 8-bit version of the Guile theme. I'm like, hell yeah, it is. Check out my guy. He's also done music for Crypto the Necro Dancer and a whole slew of other things. But Super Square is like the main band that he's in, that he tours with, and they just made official music video for hashtag Street Fighter tomorrow. So look for that news tomorrow. Breaking news. There's a lot of people, they'll be hearing this on the day that it will be coming out, which will, to date this, it is May the 4th. God damn it. It's May the 4th for you fuckers out there. But May the 4th is when they're making... Did he intentionally do that? He's a fucking nerd if he did. And he probably did. That son of a bitch. Okay. So that's official music video Street Fighter Day. I don't know what that means, but I'm excited. And that's super cool. Super happy for that dude. He deserves it. Okay. Going into the next segment. Usually we have shitpost of the week. I'm gonna change it up. A little change of a pitch. Someone suggested, hey, why don't you just like ask people what they want you to talk about and then talk about that. So I was like, well, okay, good suggestion. So I took it off to the Twitter and I said, hey, Twitter, on my Twitter account, not our Street Fighter Twitter account, which is at RedditSF. I was like, hey, what's good? Here's some topics. Which one do you want me to talk about? I could talk about managing anxiety, Evo travel tips, or how to make really good pizza. And voted by everybody, which is the topic we're going to talk about, managing anxiety and stress. This one I hold pretty close to my heart, because I happen to have like a lot of anxiety. This might not come across on stream, it might not come across in video, might not come across in the podcast, but just massive anxiety. And not even just like for competing or competition, just like it's something that even after years of doing things that I'm like comfortable in, like stand-up comedy for me I was never comfortable doing it. And like I always had that gut feeling of like, oh, I'm gonna fucking suck. Like almost every time, like before starting this podcast, I get those butterflies being like, you're gonna duff it, and then immediately duff the first 3 topics that we talked about this week, right? But like, there's still like certain like moving past it. Like you just gotta keep the train rolling on that one. But there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that, and I happen to be like have like crushing anxiety, and it's terrible. I've written about it in Geese Gym. It's one of the, it's like what we end on, like the letter from the author, which was like the losing to yourself post, which was well in advance of Geese Gym, which I included because a lot of people like that post. Regardless, managing anxiety. So this comes in a lot of forms. So like when I say an answer to this, it is not something that will apply to all players. It will be something that will be different for everybody, and how like they manage stress and how they even get stressed is another thing. Like I've met people who before we play, their hands are just like, they've got like the shaky hand. And like I don't get that kind of anxiety. I don't get that like jittery anxiety. I get like the gut reaction of like there's something burning in me telling me not to do this thing, and like the second guessing myself. Like it's a mental anxiety. For some people there's like a visceral like shaking anxiety, and for those people there's actually like some physical things that you can do in order to satiate that, or at least limit the effects of that anxiety. And the number one thing you'll see from anyone you ask about this, like doctors included, is breathe. You have to, and this is mostly true for everybody, but like regulating your breathing, it is something that even when you're playing, you will not realize you are doing this, but you will have been holding in a breath for like 30 seconds, and you go, end of the round, you go, whew, man, forgot I was just using so much of your thought space energy to play the game that you're not thinking about, oh, I need to not die. I have to breathe. Breathing is the thing that I have to do to like live, so I should do that. That's a trained thing that you have to actually practice doing, is like taking long breaths, especially like at the end, like when you have the ability to be cognizant about it, just slowing it down, going, okay, in through the mouth, out through the nose. Or is it the other way around? I am not a doctor. I'm not a doctor of health. I'm a doctor of science, but not a doctor of health. Consult your doctor on whether, or your yogi master, of which orifice you breathe in and out of when you're trying to control your breathing. I don't know which. Not a doctor. Regardless, that's like very easy step 1. Very easy step 2 is to like stay hydrated. A lot of people, a lot of the time, are very dehydrated, and that can really lean into the physical effects of anxiety. I know that I don't drink enough water like during the day. That is something that I have to like continually go back and think about of, I have to drink, like I have it like set like a schedule of, okay, this is like the time that I have to drink the water so that I don't die of dehydration. It's not that bad, right? It's just like, it's something that, especially when you go out to events, that happen to take place in the fucking desert, that you have to plan for and you have to have a lot of water for. This is kind of a side, like Evo travel tips, is like go out to like a CVS or somewhere if you can get transported somewhere where there's like a, what's it called when you get the food, when you go to the food store, grocery store, to get like a bunch of water. Get like a lot of water, like a case of water. More than a case if it's going to be more than just you in a place, because you can give other people water. You need like a lot of water that you can carry with you. Luckily, they let you bring water into that venue, which is great. Sometimes you're not allowed to at other venues, but the one at Evo, they allow you to, so that's awesome. If your local allows you to bring in water, they fucking shit. I don't know many places that don't allow it. Do it. Just stay hydrated. Make sure that, like, because here's the other thing with drinking water in between sets, is that it is something where you can do a mental reset of drinking water, similar to after a set recontrolling your breathing. You can also like rethink about breathing whenever it's like you've been knocked down. Just think, okay, calm it down. Learn to breathe. But with water specifically, it's like you can just do that almost like as a tick of, okay, you have to drink the water because you can't breathe while you're drinking the water, and that sets another signal in your head to, oh yeah, I should regulate that as well. And it's just a whole thing. So very important. Stay hydrated, have the water. That's just like some of the physical effects. There's also like some stretching you could do and some like mental, what's the word whenever you sit down and think about stuff for a long time? Meditation. Starts with an M. That's right. Meditation. That's a word that exists. Man, I'm fucking up so hard right now. So meditation is something you can do. And when I say like meditation, a lot of people who haven't like tried actual meditation before, I just think of it as like very commonly just trying to like specifically like not try and think of anything like at all and just like clear your head. But like it's not really just trying not to think about something with meditation, at least in my opinion, and in my experience of, because what'll happen whenever you meditate, and you don't do this during the match because like it involves like closing your mind and not thinking, and you should probably think when you're playing Street Fighter, maybe not when you're playing Street Fighter 5, but that's a whole nother Rago situation. So with meditation, I have found it to be very effective when I'm trying to clear my mental stack of just closing the eyes. A thought will pop into my head, because that will happen. That will happen in any form of meditation. You'll go, okay, I have a thought in my head. Instead of being like, okay, don't think about that thought and repressing that thought, you have to just like wrestle it and go, okay, why am I having this thought? What are solutions that I can do to get this thought out of my head? Like, for example, like I could say, oh, I have a very, like, man, I'm so nervous about my very strong opponent who I'm going to play next, and then just think, no. What I do personally, something that I personally use to get over that particular brand of anxiety of thinking that I'm playing someone who's going to like way outclass me, is just think, no, I know what the fuck I'm doing. I'm better than them. Like, this is something that I have learned, at least in my opinion, helps me play better against players who are like very on a technical level and like a historical level much better than I am, like have put in a lot more time into this game and put in a lot more energy into being good at this game. I can beat players like that by having that mentality of, no, I'm just better than them. I have to say it to myself and I have to like fake it till I make it. But along with that, well, let me go back and just to have the closing thought on that meditation is that you have to wrestle that idea that pops into your head and get rid of it. Like, wrestle it until it is not in your mind anymore, and then clear the mental stack. Just one at a time as things come into your head. Think about them, figure it out, push it out. And and that has, to me, has been an effective form of meditation. Now, back to thinking that I'm a better player. And it's not a... When I say that, that can very often be misconstrued with like thinking too much of myself, or like being too full of myself, and overestimating my own abilities, to which some extents, like, that is true. But it puts me in a position of... And I only am comfortable feeling this way because I know that I've put in a lot of the research and somewhat of the practice. I should practice more. This is the part that gets me in actual practice, when I'm playing someone who is better than me. Regardless, I know that I've put in the work. I know what my options are. I know what my opponent's options are. And because I know the play in my head of like how things can go, because in Street Fighter V it's like pretty limited in terms of how things can go. I know what ranges I want to be at. I know like how to read my opponents most of the time. Because I know those things, because I've done a lot of that research, I've done my homework, I think that allows me, and it can allow you as a player, to say to yourself, I'm better than this person. I know that I'm better than this person. I'm going to bop them. And it gives you a certain level of confidence of, oh, I can, like, watch this, everybody. This player's about to get dunked on. And you can really burn through some, like, a lot of skilled players if you just have that gut instinct of, like, oh no, like, I'm going to reversal here because fuck you. Like, because that's why. Because you expect me to respect you because of the kind of player that you are. But nah, son. Like, I'm going to play, like, ultra defensive or whatever, and then like you knock me down and then just go Rago on you and like let it rip, and just change your pace that way, just because I know you're not expecting it, because I know in my mind I'm better than you. And that's kind of like a lie that you have to tell yourself sometimes in order to give yourself that boost of confidence to get rid of the anxiety. I've played some skilled players and in my head just think, no, I'm better than you, and it's fine. What kills me is when I'm playing against players who like I like mentally like know I'm probably better than them, so then I start like respecting them, expecting them to do like the quote unquote like correct motion, like go through the motions, or like stand at the right range, or like anti-air me when I jump. And when they don't do those things, I'm like, they must not know. And like that, I can trip myself up over that. Regardless, back to anxiety. When you mentally tell yourself that you're better than someone, it gives you a certain like power over any kind of mental game that they might be playing against you. But again, you have to be like ultra cognizant, ultra focused on your own game. You can't just have that thought and that be it. You also have to like recognize in your own game of like, okay, that decision that I made there was dumb for this, and this reason, and like this is how a good player would adjust to that. You know what I'm saying? And just like make that like, you know, if I were a good player, I would make this decision instead of this extremely reckless decision. Or like, if I was a great player, I would make it. Regardless, that's another thing you can do. Other people have like stage fright anxiety. That's a huge thing. A lot of people aren't used to being on stages or being in front of a big crowd. There's a lot of players who get that main staging anxiety, just because I feel like there are a lot of new players who are getting to that position a lot quicker than, you know, a lot of the, or at least they're showing up on the main stage more than a lot of the old veterans are. Just how things are turning out with not only Street Fighter V, but with other games as well. There's a lot of people coming up in DBFZ. Regardless, with that, there's a certain amount of, to get over the anxiety, you just have to do it. Like, you have to get as many out of your system until you're good and it's over. It's like, I hate using this example, but I think it is an effective example in order to show you how like things can like maybe go bad and like be awful. And it's that there are a lot of people out there who the first time that like their first sexual experience, before they have it, there's a lot of anxiety of, I gotta have that sexual experience. Like, it's like all they can talk about or all they can think about is like, I just gotta have, like, I gotta break that seal. Like, I gotta do that thing. Like, it's the only thing. I just gotta go after it. So it's like, first time you on a main stage, it's like, oh, I'm here. Like, you're just so excited. It's like all you can think about is like, on the main stage. It's like, and usually when that happens, you look like an idiot. You embarrass yourself and whoever you're with. But in the sense of being on stream, you're also embarrassed by thousands of viewers at the same time. It's like having your first sexual experience streamed out to thousands of people and everyone's disappointed. It's kind of like that. And to that I say, not for sexual experiences. Don't force yourself into the situation, but just get yourself out there, like, as much as possible, in as many situations as possible. Put yourself in front of people who are going to come down on you hard and make you feel the pressure of the environment that you're in. Having that happen a number of times puts you up to the plate. It's like driving. Like, you're not comfortable the first time driving, but like a couple years, you're just like, I'm gonna text while I drive. I'm super cool, and all the cool kids text and drive. Don't do that, folks, by the way, just for safety first. But like, you get put in a comfortable situation where you get comfortable with things. That's another way you can deal with anxiety. If you are experiencing other forms of anxiety, let me know. Reply to either this post on our Street Fighter or on Twitter. If you have other ways that you manage your stress and anxiety, write in for those as well. Oh, there's one more I want to talk about, specifically with stress management. And I hate to bring this up again, but I happen to lead a high stress, career, high stress, like when I, again, like before I sit down to do this, I could get super stressed out. It just happens because there's so many things that like I actually want to do, and like a lot more that I want to do. But like specifically with work and thinking about the stack of things that I have to do and the stack of responsibilities there, beyond all of that, all of the stress that is caused by all of like the work and things that are preventing me from actually like doing the stuff I want to do in the FGC, this could actually be like a thing for you. Like if money is preventing you from getting out to events, if you have that kind of like financial burdens, if you have time burdens, if you have familial burdens, and I say like burdens not as like a negative, but just like things that you have to deal with in your life around the FGC. There are thousands of people who have crazy, like way more busy lives than I do, that also compete and perform well and follow that passion of theirs. And to that, I have to say, you just have to keep going. You have to dig. It's not that if you think about it for too long and you think, oh, there's so, like, because in my own mind, like here's a very like real example of something I am very stressed out about doing. I'm very stressed out about having that looming stack of character specifics for Geef's Gym. I want to get those all knocked out for the third season. There's a bunch of characters I haven't done yet, and I got to redo everybody. They've all got new V triggers. That's a huge amount of work. I just have to start it. I just have to do it, because if I start doing it and I hold myself to that, like, it doesn't matter if I tell anyone else about that. Like, no matter how many people I tell that I'm gonna do it, it won't actually start the project. But just getting that foot in the door and just like making that happen, taking that first step of going and doing, you stop thinking about the stress, like, of, oh, here's how much more work there is to do here. That immediately goes out the window, because you are then task oriented with, oh, I just have to do this next task. Oh, I have to add a V-trigger confirm here. Okay, let's just go down the list. I have Ryu to do next. Okay, so let's start with Ryu. Okay, what do I have to add to Ryu's? What doesn't work with Ryu? What do I need to add to Ryu? And then when it becomes task-oriented like that, then it's like, okay, there's no longer the stress and the overbearing anxiety of, oh, I have to, this big imposing thing is being held over me. That is no longer a thing. Like, you just think, okay, well, what's the next task? Specifically when applied to, like, fighting games and like doing that more so applies to like things surrounding fighting games. Like, do your job first, take care of it. That's just a task. Do your work. It's a task. Do some practice. Make it task oriented. Don't think about like, I really should practice. Just go do it. Like, cut out a little bit of time if you have to work some scheduling things. Just cut it out. And having that level of practice and like having say like, oh, I took care of that task, will give you the confidence to like, you just won't have that anxiety. Or what you can do, and that's just like more of a looming anxiety of the things that are surrounding fighting games. But if you happen to be someone who just gets that gripping anxiety, I'd say use it. Use it to your advantage. I've done this before, and it is like hard to explain exactly like how this works or the physicality of how this works, but just flipping that switch of, oh, I'm very nervous right now. Like, gut check, take a pause, go to the character select, and just go, I'm very nervous, but I'm not nervous. Like, I just physically, like, tell myself, nope, like, can't afford to do that right now. Not gonna happen. Like, and just using that, like, turning that into adrenaline, like, and making that just like course through. Like, I know, for example, I cannot have coffee or any kind of caffeine before I play fighting games. I cannot do it. I don't know how some people do it, where they're like, they can slam a Red Bull and like be fine with their hands. If I do that, I'd have a fucking heart attack. I need to take the edge, and this is probably not the best thing to admit, coming from a long line of alcoholics, but like, it really helps me to have a depressant such as alcohol, just a little bit of alcohol. Just take like, and not a lot, because like you still need to have the, like, be wary about your hands and your ability to actually perform. But just like, for me, a little bit of beer, maybe a little bit of whiskey, little nips for the road, helps me out. It helps me just to take care of that, just like that gripping anxiety, that like visceral feel of anxiety, and that can somewhat be like, okay, even if it, here's the other thing, is like, it doesn't have to be like a lot of, it's be like something that you do. It could be like something like a sip of water, for example. I talked about this earlier, like actually hydrating, just thinking like, oh, I just need water. Just like tell yourself that if I do that, then that'll make that feeling go away. Or like, because for me, that's what it really is. Like, and I'll tell myself this, you'll hear me say this on stream, where I think, oh, I'm really second guessing myself about all these decisions I'm making. I just need a drink. And then I'll like have a couple sips, and then just I'm like over it, because it's like, oh, I did the thing, like the cure-all, like here's my snake oil that I'm selling myself in order to like forget about it and have it not be such a mental blockage. Anyway, that's about all the time I have for this week. So what I like to do typically is end the show on a FGC history. A match from the past that has some significance, and I think that one that is a good way to like wrap up a little bow. This is like, I usually dig deep and go pretty far back in FGC history. This one in particular, pretty recent, Evo 2017. And I specifically bring this up because it is a very good example of someone dealing with stress very well and someone not dealing with stress very well at all. You have Tokido on one side, being very meditative, just in the zone. He's doing his breathing, he's shaking it off. He's using some kinetic energy. Like, there's some players, like, you just need to like rap on those buttons a little bit. You need to hit them pretty hard, and then like once you get that out, it's like, ooh, okay, now I got that adrenaline. Like, I'm pumped up. I had that gut feeling, and then it's like, ooh, like slap of cold water. Like, let's go. Some players need that. Tokido's doing all these things. He's shaking it off. He's drinking the water. He's getting ready. And then cut to Punk. I specifically want to point this out in minute 11:49, basically. It cuts to Punk's face. This is right after he loses the first set. And I remember this moment when it happened. in the stadium, I leaned over to my wife and I said, if Punk doesn't take a minute, if he doesn't send it back to character select, because it was like right after that loss, I leaned, like, people are cheering and I go, hey, if he doesn't go to character select, he will lose. He's going to lose this, like, and it's going to be free. Like, he's gone. He's like mentally out of it. You can tell by the decisions that he was making in the game and how dominating Tokido was in the neutral. Like, not changing it up at all, just doing the things, and Tokido just taking well advantage of that because he wasn't focused on his game. He was focused. At least I can't say this. I can't speak for him directly. It just happened to show through his play that he wasn't thinking straight. And just, you can look at his physicality. This is a player who was dominating that season, playing everybody with a smile, just knowing that he was the best. Gets a little bit of trouble with Tokido, immediately hits that rematch into the next series. And as soon as that happened, leaned over and went, it's over. Tokido has won. It will be free. And the Grand Finals reset was free. And that happened. So that's a good example of how being on that main stage can shake you. Even if that entire season you've been the strongest player in the world, if you've been so dominating, to get to that main stage, you're in a big stadium of people, never been in that situation before, and there's that crushing pressure. Sometimes you just need to take a minute. Send it back to character select. Think about it. Just go, okay, what was I doing that wasn't working? How can I manage just one of the situations being thrown at me? Because if it's like, oh, I did a missed input there, it's like, okay, just don't mess up your inputs. Just don't next time. It's not something you should dwell on. I know that I have personally dwelled on like missed inputs or something, and I think, I need to correct that. So maybe I'll try and do that exact same combo when it's like, no, I'm not actually thinking about the situation anymore. I'm thinking about that combo that I fucked up. So I'm going to like try and prove to myself that I can do that combo, when really I should just be thinking, well, what combo is best for the situation? What kind of hit confirm is best against what my opponent is trying to accomplish defensively? Because those things matter. It's not a catch-all, apparently. But this is a good example of that. A player just cracking under the pressure. And I think kind of wraps things up with, just how to deal with anxiety. And I will also point out at the end of the Daigo interview that we talked about earlier with Chris Tatarian and Daigo from Beast TV, or the Gauntlet podcast, Daigo talks about anxiety and having that stress. And he says some things on that topic that were very thought-provoking, and I will think about for the next couple weeks. And hopefully you guys will come back next week. Speaking of time dilation and how... Oh, fuck, really? I talked for over an hour? Also want to point out, it is stiflingly hot in this room right now. It got hot immediately. There was no springtime. It was... it like snowed last week, and now it's summer! Which I'm not okay with. Not okay with that. It's been rough. And being in this room, like, I haven't turned on the AC yet. There's a big computer right next to me, and it's billowing out heat. I'm probably flushed if you're watching the video. I'm not embarrassed about the things I've said. I'm not like peering a cute lady, not blushed for that reason. It's stiflingly hot. It's fucking hot. But that's the show, folks, and I'll catch you guys again next week. Again, I'm Joe Monday. You can find me at Super Joe Monday on Twitter, or you can find me at RedditSF, which is the official Twitter account of our Street Fighter. Look for the posts in our Street Fighter for this podcast, or dig into the comments on the YouTube channel, where I'll share all of the posts that we talked about throughout the show. If you want to go back again, like watch that interview, which I again recommend you do, as well as all the other things we talked about. If you have any comments, concerns, leave your posts there, or at me on Twitter. I'm probably going to try and do another interact with the community more through the podcast. So look for posts either on my Twitter account or the official Street Fighter Twitter account for questions like we did this week, on topics or just things in general. I haven't quite figured out how it's going to go, but we'll see how that goes next week. But until then, until next time, folks, you guys take care. We'll see you next time on another edition of RSF Radio. Take care, folks.